I have to admit, episode 8 of Trigun Stampede was a very well put together episode. Now, besides the last part, I will say the last part is just absolutely confusing. It's like this cut to him in modern time or current time, and he's in a bed, and apparently he's back at home. And yet, when we last left him, he was on the ship with the plant, but now he's here. But that's like parallel with him going somewhere else in the past and meeting Knives. Is like, what are we doing? Like, are we I supposing that Vash transported in the modern times to somewhere else? I don't know. Besides that one shot of Vash apparently back home, the rest of it was amazing. The rest of it was really well put together. I really did enjoy it. Pretty much the theme of this episode really being running away from your past and deciding at some point to confront it. Now, granted, it's being forced to confront it, not necessarily choosing to confront it, but he has finally decided, I want to atone for what I've done. I will atone for what independence. I hate that name. Independent. An independent has done, I will atone for it. But yeah, it really does feel like at this point with this whole backstory laid out, and I think with another episode to really kind of wrap it up, because you're obviously in the next episode going to have him confronting Knives. He's going to lay out exactly everything he's been doing up until then, why he has a bunch of dead plants. And I think that's all going to kind of spell out what his plans are. And then that pretty much leaves us with, 3 or so episodes to, I don't know, have some final battle. I don't know if they're going to rush it to the end that fast. I mean, there's a lot of speculation right now as to if this is going to be a single core or a 2-core. I don't know why they would do all this and just settle with a single core. My assumption was that they were going to go at least 2 cores. But again, this depends on how much they're really putting into this and if they even care to go multiple cores with it or just do an homage really quickly, get it all done. I know there's a lot of content still within like the other mangas and stuff that they can still get into here and a lot of people they can run into. But again, this is supposed to be an original. This isn't supposed to be a readaptation of the entire manga. That's the thing I keep saying every single video. But yeah, they've pretty much laid out mostly everything, I think. Again, I'm very vague on what I remember from the original series, and I never read the manga, so keep all that in mind. But no, like I said, a really solid episode, pretty much laying out the point in which, yes, Knives destroyed everything, and Vash at some point ends up running into the people of Ship 3. Now, this is really kind of one of those interesting things because it frustrates me at the same time. It makes sense in the idea that when he's first brought in, you do have this one girl, Luide, and she is taking care of Vash, while as this Brad guy just cannot get it through his thick skull that this isn't some dangerous being. But again, it plays in that whole thing where we don't fully understand what these plants are. They seem to know what they are, that they are these plants that they do use for a resource. I mean, they even ask Vash, what do you produce? Like, they know he's a plant right off the bat. And they're trying to ask him, what do you produce? Do you produce water? Do you produce electricity? It seems like each one of these plants have some sort of different thing that they can produce. I'd assume that they all produced everything. Like, everything your place would need, they provide. Because typically with every single village they've gone to, it just has one plant. And that one plant provides something. I think they've shown a couple that have 2 plants. But for the most part, they just have one plant. So I'd assume that maybe some of them have one that's water, one that's electricity. That's pretty much most what you need. Like your bare essentials is those 2 things. Well, I technically would say food and water, but electricity and water is one way to go about it. But it seems like there's like chemical compounds, amino acids, like all these different things that they can produce from these plants. And they're trying to figure out what he has. And it's interesting because he points out that he himself, yes, he's an anomaly. They've established that really quickly. They don't look like humans. This kid looks like a human. And apparently, again, also with Knives, he looks like a human. There are these independents, these birth from plants. That the plants normally, they're just there. But sometimes they'll give birth to an independent. Or at least that's their theory that they're going with. And Vash is one of 2 that was birthed from them. But specifically he's pointing out, or at least from Vash's perspective, he's pointing out that unlike the other one, assuming her Knives, I can't produce anything. So it's implying that Knives can produce something. Is that his metal? Like, because the things that are like, swarming around him, is that what he's producing? I don't know, and again, that's another one of those things where I don't remember from the original series, but that's my assumption, is that he's able to produce metal of some sort, a metal compound, and Vash isn't able to. And again, because I don't remember, I don't know if eventually he finds out that no, he can produce something, so we'll see if Vash can produce something in the future. But again, it's one of those interesting things that I don't think I ever really thought about. That yes, Vash is one of these plants, or at least from it. Why isn't he able to produce something? Or has he always been able to produce something and I just haven't really clicked it? But yes, the looming issue here is that they eventually go to ship 5 to figure out where this REM is, and they find a black box. And that black box eventually is going to reveal to them, despite the fact that Vash has been helping them, that he is an accomplice to Knives, because a long time ago when he first dropped the ships, he turned to Vash and said, "You're an accomplice. You got me the access codes." I hate that stupid Vash. I hate that Vash part. It is so... I hate this word too. It's cringy. It is so... Vash. But no, it sucks because it is one of those aspects where I don't think they really were going to go after him. Because throughout this whole period of time up until the point where they finally break the code in this black box, there is this established help that Vash is doing. He's going to every single one of these plants within them and with externally and saving all the people. He's activating each and one of these plants. And I don't, again, that's one thing that I don't remember being really laid out in the original one that I remember, is this idea that when they first arrived there, when humankind first crashed there, because of Knives, all the plants weren't activating. They weren't providing resources they needed. They said something to the effect that it's not working well with the environment. It's not compatible. These plants aren't compatible with the environment. So they're not producing anything. They're dying. And it was calling out for Vash, and Vash was able to come in there and speak to it, call out to it, and say that he's there. Again, I kind of hope that at some point they get into explaining what the heck's happening here. Like, what is Vash going up to these things and touching the glass suddenly make the thing go, okay, producing stuff? Like, is he talking to them? Is he explaining to them what they need to do? Is he communicating for the humans? Is he soothing their mind? Whispering sweet nothings in their ears? What is he telling them that they go, oh, okay, I'll be a plant then. I'll just sit here and provide stuff for humans. What is he telling them? But still, he's going to each one of these plants and he's making it to where they are able to work in this environment or able to function and not just die. So he is literally saving mankind by going around to each one of these plants that him and Brad go to. He saved mankind at that point. So I don't see why, oh, I heard a black box that said that this Knives guy is an accomplice with that Vash is an accomplice to this Knives kid. You would probably want to know the whole story. Because it's obvious that Vash isn't a bad person. It's obviously that he's not doing bad. Because again, if it weren't for Vash, you'd be dead now. So it's obvious that he's not a bad person. It's one of those frustrating things, like, why do we immediately jump to conclusions? But again, I do understand the idea that what Brad says while they're traveling around is, this is nothing compared to the hell we went through when we first arrived. They went through some serious stuff. Because again, they're crashing there. They've been probably burying hundreds of thousands of people that all died during that event. They've been scrounging together any sort of resources and survivability and food, and they're stuck there. And there's no signs of them ever being able to leave this planet. So I understand that Brad would be very hesitant to trusting Vash at that point, but again, still, you wouldn't be here if it weren't for him. It's that little back and forth. But again, he does change his tone very quickly when he reads the thing and says, I'm going to atone for what my brother basically did. It was kind of interesting to see that Vash himself grew up so much during this period of time, but then Brad and Luigi never looked like they ever changed age. I don't know if they're implying that humans have a longer lifespan than usual, or if Vash, as one of these independents, at least grows in this stage faster. There seems to be a little bit of a issue here with continuity and who's aging too fast. And I don't know if they're aging too slow or he's aging too fast, but it was kind of one of those things that threw me off, like, partway through it, because he looked like he aged by at least like 5 years, and again, nobody else looked like they changed at all. But I'll be curious to see what happens next episode. I think my biggest question mark I have is really around the plants themselves, because I don't necessarily think that Knives wants to kill the plants. He wants to save the plants. So is he just gathering them and he's hoping that Vash will eventually come and restore them? That's why they're all red. But it sort of implies that he's kind of been gathering them and they're all dying or at least dead. Or maybe them being in that state is what he wants. He doesn't want them to be in this positive blue or green state, whatever, producing stuff, but to be, in an incubation. But we'll see. I think the next episode's gonna be really telling, but I hope you guys enjoyed my impressions of episode 8 of Trigun Stampede. If you did, make sure to go down below and hit that like button. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list if it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, tips link, and a super thanks button down below. I greatly appreciate everybody it does, and y'all take care.